Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery preparing to check in on my Buddy Red Wiggler worm bins. And the only reason they've been named Buddy bins is because, in a way, all of my other systems, not all of them, but a great number of them are paired up. Bins number 1 and 2, you could see over here too. Bins number 1 and 2 up here too, bins 1 and 2 here. We've got two systems with different start dates. There's about a month and a half difference in their ages. That's the only reason they're not brothers or sisters or twin bins. They're just buddy bins. And they're the ones we're going to be checking in on today. As you can tell just from their arrangement here, they are amongst my oldest systems. 299 and 256 days of age. I've got some other stats that I can share about the systems with you, but we'll get them up on the bench first. So let's get started. So the age of the systems we talked about, the number of times fed so far, 25 and 22 times. There's also gourds that were fed 230 days ago. And that's quite a long time. Stuff is still going. Other little oddball things, if for whether or not it's even here, is the cork in bin number 1 as well. And it's been 39 days now since we decided to stop adding bedding to the systems and initiate the phase of foraging. Paper covers are doing a good job from what I could tell. These are probably amongst my nicest systems in terms of the consistency of the material, the way it just flows. And I'd hate for that to snowball into a situation where it's really nice and it flows, but then suddenly it becomes too dry. So my worry was that perhaps we might reach a point where the moisture level will start dipping below what might be considered as optimal. I don't know, I guess we'll go through after today's check-in. We'll decide whether sticking with paper covers is a good idea, or perhaps we'd be better off bringing in some sort of plastic, something to help the systems hang on to their moisture a little bit better. So I'm guessing that it's got to be some of these sorts of seeds that we're seeing sprout over there once in a while. It was not too long ago when these systems were still up near the window that that there was like a whole garden of these things sprouting out at once. So it looks like we're still getting some here and there. So let's not worry about those little fragments. I keep wondering after I do something like that if I would have been better off not fragmenting them so that we'd be able to use something like my screen to exclude them at some point. If you got little tiny pieces, they might go through the screen. Alright, let's dig in. Something I did yesterday, figured I'll try it again here today, is just to do a step that I usually do after the feeding, which is just the aeration and inspection of the outer edges. I did it this way yesterday in a couple other bins where I started with what I normally save for the end, and then eventually make our way to the feeding zone to see how the worms did with their last meal. And the food they're getting today is not that much, I guess. Well, it's a pretty good sized mound of material there. And now that I come to think of it, it might be kind of compacted because it has a good bit of weight too. I think there's like cucumber peel there, some maybe potato peel, some mango peel. And what's this? Okay. No, I don't think so. Oh, I got all excited that this might have been a fragment of, or no, the cork, but it's just a fragment of the gourd. That's nice and soft now that I can just break it into little itsy bitsy pieces, and I don't think we'll be identifying that as gourd any longer now that it's been fragmented. And here, another chunk of gourd, probably similarly softened up to the point where I could help it along a little bit. I guess in this bin I keep wondering if I might still bump into the cork someday, but I guess there's always that possibility that it just sort of reached that point where it finally accelerated to the finish line and actually has broken down. and is no longer around to be found. But it would be kind of interesting to bump into it, and I also have to factor in the, very good likelihood that it's probably much smaller than it was last time we saw it, because it's been a long time since we saw it. And it was really, starting to dwindle down to hardly anything anymore. Alright, just figured I'd exclude that stick. I like how the outer edges look. Every place we've looked so far, we've found a good many worms enjoying the material. Even though it flows nicely, when I watch the video, I often look at it and I think to myself, my goodness, the way that stuff flows, it must be dry. Dry as sand on a beach, but no, it's actually really nice as far as moisture level goes. But I think it's time to open up the feeding zones and drop in today's feeding minus any bedding. Now that we're on day 39 of foraging, we've gone through probably a good couple check-ins now without giving them any more bedding materials. I mean, I know that here and there I do sometimes cheat. I'll throw in a little piece of this or that somewhere. And even last time we might have even used some old coffee filter, some old feeding zone indicators that were tattered, and just included them with the feeding last time. So it's not a strict rule, but it is kind of nice watching the contents of these systems eventually transform into a batch of beautiful castings in vermicompost. So that's one of the gourds, super thick wall. Oh, but it's interesting. I could definitely crack this if I wanted to, but I think it's more interesting keeping it as one solid object like that. So we'll just not mess with it too much more than that. I just kind of get in the habit of evicting all the worms off these things so we can take a look at how they're doing. And today on day 230, they're I guess just as far as completeness, it doesn't seem like they're being nibbled down or consumed very much. And man, this mango seed husk really wants to break apart under the strain of me kind of just handling it here. I could feel bits of it wanting to chip away and break off. So I just figured I'd manhandle it there a little bit and put a nice big dent in it. Nice big fold on the side of it. Maybe exposing a little bit more of it to worm traffic that way. And yeah, I don't really see anything that resembles any sort of food or leftovers, or bedding for that matter, and I assume that kind of makes sense. Anything resembling bedding in here would probably go pretty quick. So if we did give them some 12 days ago, it's not too surprising that we're not finding much of it. I don't know. This material right here that I'm pinching in between my fingers, oddly enough, does have a real cork-like feel to it. And I guess just the size of this thing seems to be consistent with what I would kind of expect anymore. Making me wonder if we might have just bumped into a chunk of cork. Oh, sorry, Wormy. I just noticed this little tiny worm I was kind of giving a little back massage to there, but yeah, I'm going to assume that we did actually just find the cork after so much time, and not too surprising looking at how small that thing is. Perhaps we'll just keep it together with this larger of the gourd pieces so that we can keep tabs on it. Oh, here's other little tiny fragments of what appear to be some bedding type materials, so that was kind of cool. I guess further making me wonder if I might bump into other fragments of it. That might be more of it. It just feels like if it was a chunk of gourd, then it would not be as pliable, not as, kind of soft to the squeeze. So let's press on. A lot of times I treat the check-in on the first of two bins as the more exploratory of the check-ins, but then I'd like to think that since we've been managing these systems pretty much identically ever since they were buddied up, that we can expect just more of the same. Kind of enabling me to pick up the pace a little bit, with the expectation we might not be seeing anything too new or interesting. And that piece of gourd almost shattered just from me just shaking it a little bit. So looks like we've got another gourd that's well on the way to being busted up. But you know, a little thin skinned gourd versus a big thick skinned gourd like that, there's a huge amount of difference in time that it's going to take for those to break down, one versus the other. All right, let's bring in their yummy foods. What have we here? All right, it is a combination of different stuff. So some mango peel. Oh, there's a few more chunks in here. Make sure everyone gets a fair shake at the sweet stuff. I see a tomato snuck in there, or is that radish? Some of this looks to me like potato skin and cucumber skin. And there's a good bit of frost that has developed in here too, with, I guess, moisture making its way out of the fruits and veggies and just turning into ice here in the container. So let's bring these down. Usually we'll put these in first and then pile in the yummy foods on top of them. I wonder if it'll make much difference for us to sort of reverse the order and have these resting out on top of the yummy morsels of food. I guess we'll just have to see. So let's backfill and we'll be done here. I think we're okay. You know, if I had gotten the feeling like things were getting dry or dangerous in here, I would certainly act upon that and act accordingly by putting some sort of moisture evaporation blocking type plastic covers on here, maybe bubble wrap or something. But I think we're okay. I think we're actually getting just the right amount of protection in our systems with the paper covers on here, giving the systems plenty of breathing capability, a lot of airflow going on. And I guess without the moisture circulating down onto our feeding zone indicators, it's enabling our feeding zone indicators to last a little bit longer than normal as well. So that's it for our check-in with the Buddy Red Wiggler bins. Coming along real nice with the foraging. And I gotta tell you the truth, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot more for them to need to work down as far as foraging goes. I'm wondering if perhaps we should just start thinking about getting these little guys migrated out of their environment, cut them loose on something fresh. Might be time soon. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.